All right, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a full evening packed tonight. I'm very proud for the work that has been taking place within our counseling department and student services. My name is Dr. Adam Clark. I'm the superintendent here in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And I know that all of us are going through multiple sets of challenges as we live through this global pandemic. And I think no one is feeling the challenges more than our student body. And so we have scheduled a couple of these evenings to try to give our students and families some tools and resources to be able to get through some of the challenges that we are facing. Tonight, we have a very exciting title, and I think it really embodies the spirit of our district and definitely the spirit of our multiple communities who we represent. And the title tonight is Students Helping Students. And so I'm very, very proud of this group. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stephanie Roberts, and she will introduce the panel and be your host for this evening. So I hope you all have a good night and enjoy the information that we have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clark. So as Dr. Clark mentioned, my name is Stephanie Roberts. My role in the district is Director of Special Projects, Director of Partnerships and Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. I'm very fortunate to work with our school counseling department and have been charged with DJing and facilitating these courageous open conversations about mental health. So just so that our panelists know who's kind of in the Zoom with us tonight, can you put in the chat if you are a student, a staff, a parent? It helps our panelists kind of get a sense of who's here virtually with us. We also will be recording tonight's panel series, and they will be housed on the district website under student services. So if you are joining us live, welcome. If you're watching us after, please let us know your thoughts. So what you can expect tonight, we are going to go through a couple of questions. Each of our panelists will share their ideas, their concepts, their recommendations. And then we will, as always, connect and ask for ongoing questions. So you will see this next slide before I have you introduced, have our panelists introduce each other. We have 6 more panels coming for the next 4 or 5 months. In March, we have one focusing on recognizing when to get help beyond the home. In April, we're going to do a focus on anxiety and depression. In May, parents of teens and tweens, how to facilitate independence when they can't leave the house. In June, we're going to do something specific to parents of elementary age. What skills can we increase during distance learning? And then in June, we're going to give some guidance and supports around finding community supports and summer activities while we go into summer session. So something to look forward to. You can find information on the district website under student services, mental open conversation series. And we are gathering questions for each of these topics as well. So please take some time to fill out that survey, and we will also put that in the chat. All right, so I'm very excited and fortunate to welcome our panelists. We're going to start with Leslie. Each panelist will introduce themselves and let them know a little bit about themselves. But before Leslie does that, we want to make note that there is simultaneous translation happening. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to click that. And I have 2 amazing colleagues, Wendy Aguili, our Chief Pupil Services and Special Education, and our Director of Student Services, Felicia Stuckey-Smith, who are going to be my partners watching the chat and making sure that we're going to be able to keep the conversation going and answering any questions. So before I move on, I'm checking with my 2 friends over there, Wendy and Felicia. Did I miss anything? All right. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the highlight of the evening, and we're going to start with Leslie. Can you please introduce yourself and then let us know where you're from?
Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Moore Harris, and I am a counselor at Riverview Middle School.
Okay. Pedro?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Arroyo, and I work with the Equity Office. I'm one of the counselors that's assigned to the Equity Office. Good to be with you tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Cabezas. I'm the Behavioral Health Specialist at Olympic High School.
Hello, everybody. My name is Will Beauvais. I'm a school psychologist in the district. I work at Monte Gardens Elementary School, and I work with our counseling and RAP clinic.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alondra Lopez. I'm a sophomore at Mount, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zena Ali. I'm a junior at College Park, and I'm super excited to be able to show my insight.
Thank you.
I'm a student at. I'm Michaela Fells. I'm a student at El Dorado, and I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. We're really excited tonight, especially because we have 3 students that have joined us, and we really are looking forward to having additional students join us in future panels. So if you are a student watching and you would like to sit on a panel, please contact your school counselor and let them know. We think that it's invaluable to have students and staff having these conversations together. So we really appreciate these 3 students for being the first ones to do this with us. So we're going to start. We have the evening is going to go from now until 6:15. So we've got 5 questions that we're going to pose. Each question, the counselors and the students have, or the mental health staff have been thinking about these questions. We also will be watching the chat to see if there's any additional thoughts or questions that you have specific to the questions, and then we'll move on to the second question. So our first question this is for Sarah, Will, Michaela, and Pedro. In your experience, can you share some successful examples of students helping students? Sarah?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think I've been able to really witness some pretty awesome things happening during distance learning, and you know, I know it's been difficult on many of us kind of doing this from our homes, but I've seen a lot of students really come together and support their peers in many ways. And I've had students, you know, refer their friends to groups that we have on campus and say, hey, I have a friend that I think really could be, you know, could benefit from joining this group. Can I invite them in? And that's been something that's been really welcome. I've had students refer students to come and, you know, to see me, or to see their academic advisors. And, you know, our academic counselors and our BHS and our school psychologists on our campus, you know, we are welcoming our students with open arms to really support them and encourage them to reach out to us. And as well as our, you know, students like bringing their friends in, like, please come, like we're open, we're available. You know, we've had students that have volunteered to read in small groups at other schools to kind of help, you know, the teachers out and just kind of connect and be a part of that connection, which I think has really supported their feeling of accomplishment and productivity during this time.
Thank you. Will, do you want to add to that?
Definitely. Now Sarah's been at Olympic for a long time, and she runs some really great programs there, and they really traditional and non-traditional programs. And when I first see this question, I think about the structural programs that we have at our schools. I've seen a number of our schools, and we have great programs, high school, middle school, and even elementary, anti-bullying and coping skills. When I see this question, though, I really think about a lot of the work that I do is more on one-on-one settings. And some programs like that really kind of get traditionally high achieving kids. And in one-on-one settings, I've actually seen examples of kids who you wouldn't suspect to really benefit from being a student who's helping students, and to really succeed from that help and that support. I guess what I'm saying is I've worked with students who have been suspended or who'd be really had challenges and be in those challenging places. But it's when I can reach out to them and we can talk, or they can talk with their family about their friends or their siblings or the people that they can support. It's when they connect with them and really connect with that feeling of service that I see a strong self-esteem change and can really see some real progress. So I guess I'm proud of our district because we do have a lot of things that succeed on a broader base, but we also have a lot of people who are working with individuals, and I've seen that individual change, which I think is amazing.
You are muted, Stephanie.
Thank you. Poor Michaela's like, I can't hear you. I was like, Michaela, can you go next for us? Thanks, honey.
Yeah, yeah. So, recently, especially in El Dorado, I've seen a lot of students like help each other, especially with say when one of them is having a technical issue. Especially when people are having technical issues. Sorry, raise my hand. Sorry. I've seen like especially when some students are having technical issues, a lot of people like to help them with technology, which I think is really great, especially now because technology can be very confusing. I think it's great that we're having like especially at the middle school, El Dorado, like a lot of people like the teachers have been making like little clubs and stuff. I think it's fun to watch the students like refer the other students to the clubs and ask them to come and invite them. I also think it's nice when I see some students like telling like I think it's important to see students helping each other and especially in El Dorado, I see a lot of students helping each other. I think it's really great.
Great. Thank you. Pedro?
Yeah, I was thinking, having the experience of having been a counselor at a site and running our TUPE program, our tobacco use prevention and education program, and what a powerful kind of district-wide initiative it is. And although that work continues, I just think that what a powerful tool of having students design lessons, materials for students and by students. And we know the power. As an adult who's nearing my 50s now, I think I might share a message to a student, but when it comes from a peer, someone who looks like them, who speaks like them, who comes from their same community, I think the power of those initiatives that we've had within the district, and I know that work with TUPE continues currently. And I know that when I was facilitating the TUPE group at YVHS, part of the support that students offered each other was around kind of strategies to delay or not use tobacco related products, but it also became a way for students to help each other with academics, recommend the classes to take, look for job opportunities. So I think there is a lot of power in having those initiatives and those structures where students lead, where students decide, and the results have been really powerful, kind of beyond just the subject of tobacco use and prevention. So thank you.
Thank you. For the panelists, is there any last minute thoughts specific to this question that kind of jumped out for you all?
I would like to add something, actually. I'm part of Black Student Union at College Park, and it's really nice to see like there are people like in those groups that are like struggling with like mental issues related to like racism and like people being like racist towards them, and then they feel like they're not good enough for like society. And it's really like heartwarming to be able to like help those people. And it's like a really good support system. So if you're ever like around College Park, definitely come visit Mr. Harris and his group of Black Student Union because they're great at helping.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Anything else before I move on? I was just looking at the chat. Felicia and Wendy, is there anything that we need to address?
Not at this time, but if anybody wants to add comments or questions in the chat, we're happy to read them through.
Okay, great.
Oh, looks like we just got one.
Okay, good. What's our question?
The question was, an attendee told them that they cannot see the other attendees' comments in the chat. Is that part disabled? And yes, the comments come to the panelists, and then we go ahead and read through them, and we'll certainly pose any questions to you, the panelists. That's Miss Felicia Stuckey-Smith and my job today. And then we will also share out any sort of recurrent themes that are occurring throughout the comments. So please feel free to type it in and let us know what you're thinking. Let us know any questions you have, and we are happy to get that shared out with the rest of the group.
Great. Thank you for the clarification and the question. Okay, we're going to move on to the second question. And this is for Will, Zena, Pedro, and Sarah in that order. What are the benefits and the risks of helping others or students helping others? And will helping others hurt or help? And how will I know? So Will, would you like to go first?
Happy to. So this is a big question. There's a lot here, and I think we all might look at this in a slightly different way, but I'll take a stab at my part of this question. So when I look at this question, I'm looking at benefits and risks. And first of all, I think the benefits for being a student and students helping others are many. I'm biased as a mental health professional. I think everybody on this panel is biased as mental health professionals, but there's a feeling and a light that comes from being able to help your community and help the people around you, which I think is incredible. I know when I'm having a hard time or there's a hard day, I either try to help somebody out or reflect on a time that I've done that, and that really helps me push through to do the next thing that's important. I strongly believe that positive actions we do and that happen around us really create positivity around us. So I want to encourage everyone, you know, if you can give to the people around you. The risk side, I see it as more complicated. And the primary risks, and when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about teenagers and students, is opening yourself up to others can be really painful. It's actually really hard to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I see that you are, first of all, you're making an accusation. I see that something's wrong and I want to help you. And that's a risk. And you're really opening up part of yourself and part of your heart in that process. So it's not as simple as, oh, I'm going to, you know, give $1 to somebody on the street or something like that. We're talking about help where you really do a benefit and open up, and that can be really hard. I also see some teenagers who get pigeonholed as being a helper, where as a teenager, I see students as finding their identities and who they are. And it's important to not just be in that role of support, because we're trying to grow students who are full students, who part of it is a helper and part of it is a support. There's an old adage in counseling that they always, on the airplanes, they say, first you put the mask on yourself in case of water landing, and then somebody else. And I think that's really true. If you're going to help somebody else, you also, while there's benefits, you really need to support yourself. Another idea that we talk about as mental health professionals is compassion fatigue. And I think that can happen too to students. And when we're giving too much and giving too much and giving too much, there's not enough there. So the risks are great, but I'm sorry, the benefits are great, but there are risks and they're complicated, and it's a piece that should be part of the dialogue. Thank you. I'll pass to Sarah.
Actually, it was going to be Zena next. So Zena, then Pedro, then Sarah.
Sorry, Zena. I'll pass to Zena.
Zena, she was waiting.
I kind of like split this up into two different like categories, because like in my head, helping someone with homework or like school and helping someone like personally is totally different. And both of them are like my personal experiences. So like with helping people like with schoolwork, some benefits are that people will become like closer with you. They'll like see you as a friend. You'll come off as smart, which I don't know if that's like a benefit, because like then you'll get used, but and it keeps you on top of your schoolwork. But then there are risks that come with it. People like start to rely on you and depend on you, and then like kind of force you to like send them like, oh, send me this homework, and then you just like, I need to take care of myself, you know. And there are people that like will be fake friends towards you to like get that like specialness from you. But from like a mental aspect, the benefits are that you could really help someone, like you feel like they have someone in their corner, and you can you go to the extent of like saving their life, really. But then there are also risks involved, and I really see this like in middle school, rarely ever like in high school. If you like kind of like tell someone that someone's going through something, they will feel like attacked and feel like some like distrust in you, because they feel like that you took the information that they told you in confidence, and you just went to and told an adult that could help them, but they don't see it that way, you know? So like my answer would be like, for most of the time, no, like you're not going to get like anything like bad coming out of it. But there are some people that are more like susceptible to being sucked into the vortex of people relying on them for everything. They start to lose themselves. They feel like their only purpose in life is to serve others, which is really bad. And these people are more susceptible to being manipulated and used for their like kindness. and you'll know if like a child's being negatively impacted by their peers, because they'll start to withdraw from not only school but their family as well. And like I'm sure all the people on the panel can agree with me, like humans are very social creatures. So like especially children, because like when you're with like a person in the same age group as you, you will instantly like click with them. But when these like kids that are like with people that are in their age group start to withdraw, that's like when you know there's a problem, and you have to go and like ask them, hey, what's wrong? Be like really open with them, show them that you can be vulnerable, so then they feel comfortable to be vulnerable with you. And my advice to like people that are being like, oh, thank you. But my advice to people that are like going through stuff like that is to just respect your own boundaries and stand up for yourself when you're being used. Like notice, the first step is acknowledgement. Acknowledge that you're being used and that you need to take time for yourself. And then like make it, make boundaries and let people know that you are not their like puppet, So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Zena. Pedro, you want to add anything to that? And Sarah, you're next after that.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking to echo what my colleague said around the benefits of helping, and then also at what point does one begin to kind of step back and allow the person that you're helping to begin to do the tasks or the work on their own? And I think like the best example that I can kind of give is that kind of the whole idea of gradual release in the classroom. So initially, when we're helping somebody, we might do it together the first 3 or 4 times. And then now we're going to say, okay, now I want you to do it on your own for part of the way. And then kind of the last step would be, well, now I want you to do the work on your own. And I think there's something to be gained about having that, what's it called? Like this sense of struggle or productive struggle in gaining the benefits of being able to do things on your own. So I think that's how I view kind of helping with young people within the counseling role is we want to model and we want to do things with, but then we want to begin to kind of slowly kind of back away because we want kids to be able to problem solve and then to be able to develop that capacity in achieving in their own productive struggle. So it comes from like an internal locus of control versus external, right? So that's kind of how I see both the benefits and potentially like in not kind of being able to put some limits and to slowly kind of disengage from the helping so the person can do it on their own. I think that's like, that's a good model or some good ideas.
Great point. Thank you, Pedro. And to close out the response to this question, Sarah, do you have anything to add to this?
I mean, I want to I agree 100% with what all of our panelists have said about this topic. And I think, we, innately want to be of service and be helpers. It makes us also, we get something out of it as well, right? Not only are we being helpful and being of service, but there is a sense of gratification that you get as well, right? Which increases and lifts your mood, in turn. And so I think, that is a piece to also just recognize as well. When it comes to the benefit of being a helper, right? Additionally, I noticed that there was a question in the comments about the compassion fatigue, right? And I just want to echo that sentiment of what Will had said. Compassion fatigue definitely is real. And I think one of the first things that you can do if you're feeling like you're experiencing this is just acknowledge that that's really what it is, and then, I think my suggestion on that is, it's okay to step back. Right. And you might hear me say this again throughout the evening, but one of the most popular kind of sayings and things that I've seen, and even before COVID, is kind of like, it's okay to not be okay, right? And if you're feeling like you're not okay, take a step back. You don't always have to be that person that helps. While it's great, while you can, that's wonderful. Sometimes you need to know when you might need to take a step back and really be transparent about that with yourself and give yourself some time and some space and some grace as well.
Great, thank you. Are there any last minute comments on this question from the panel? And then Felicia and Wendy, if you see any questions in the comment that we need to address, just let me know. We're good?
The only thing that I can see is that Mrs. Turner is a teacher and she wanted to emphasize the practice of we do, you do, I do, or whatever order that is. I don't know why I'm messing that up 15 times. But really the gradual process of letting things go, and that can really be applied to, everything we do, and especially as the students are trying to help each other.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move into the next question. And if you're a student, then you're going to answer the question, what can I do if I am concerned about a friend? And if you're a staff member, we're kind of responding to this as what can my child, if we're giving advice to a parent, what can my child do if they are concerned about a friend? And we're going to start with Leslie.
Thank you, Stephanie. So if your child is concerned about a friend, I would suggest that you, or if you are a student, to acknowledge your friend's feelings, to validate them, like let them know that you're there for them. You can thank them for sharing with you, like how they've been feeling. You can always remind them that there's a counselor there to speak with, or they can talk with like a trusted adult at home, or a teacher or somebody at school, just so that that adult can help out. And then, always if they are, saying that they want to hurt themselves or others, to make sure that you really do contact an adult so that they can get the support that they need. We as counselors and mental health professionals wouldn't want you to feel the burden of, having that information and not knowing what to do with it. You can always refer them to any crisis lines, but especially if they are, going to harm themselves or somebody else, to reach out to an adult. Pedro?
Yes, I would say the same thing, that the best thing that a young person can do, based on the situation or the severity of the concern, that the best thing that the child or the young adult can do on behalf of the friend is to get the support of other caring adults who can access services that a young person, or supports that a young person may not be able to provide at that particular time and place. So I would say the same thing, just really encouraging children that it is okay to seek the support, so that young person that is hurting can get the support and the assistance that they need. And I think I know that's a particular that could be a particular like challenge based on the messages that you may be receiving about not telling and about not snitching on a friend, because I think that's something that we need to name as a very powerful force with certain students. But in telling somebody and getting the support of another adult, all you're doing is you're showing the care and compassion for a friend. So that's what I would add.
Okay, great. Panelists, any additional thoughts on this question? And one thing to consider is, we've addressed when we're concerned about another friend who's showing concern about self-harm or harming others. But what if you just notice that your friend seems really sad or is really overwhelmed because they're not doing so well in school? Is there any advice that you would give students or parents to in that piece? Yeah, Zena?
For me personally, like when I see like a friend kind of like going down, I like to go out of my way to contact them and make them feel loved and special. Like I'll like invite them over, I'll make them cookies. I'll really like go like the extra mile to make sure that like they know that there's someone in their circle that loves them and cares for them and wants them to stay. And if it gets like really bad, you can always call 911 or even call like a healthcare professional, tell them that you need to like bring like a therapist out and give them a 5150, and they get taken to the mental hospital, they get evaluated, and they get the help that they need. So yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional thoughts?
I did. I wanted to speak on the piece. I'm sorry, Leslie.
Why don't you go Will and then Leslie?
Great. You know, when Leslie and Pedro were discussing it, they were talking about confidentiality and when to break that. And I thought Zena brought that up earlier, actually, really, in talking about risks and benefits of if you open up to somebody and then being fearful of breaking that confidentiality and what to do. And I think it's a real concern. You know, I have the perspective of a mental health professional, and what I always do in those cases, you know, we speak to students about really challenging things. Usually in that moment is when I'll tell them like, hey, that really concerns me and I need to talk to somebody about it. Because if you can address it in that moment, that's going to be a different thing than if you walk away from that conversation and then have to call a parent, and then it feels a little bit like you're going behind their back. So it's not always possible, but if it's possible that, and you're a student and another student's coming to you and saying about harm or something of concern, letting them know like, hey, this doesn't feel right to me, and I'm gonna go to an adult, and let's talk about who we're gonna go talk to together, or who can we draw into this, because it can be a bonding moment and it doesn't need to be a breaking moment. So I think it's an important thing to consider, but it's also an important thing to respect that. And I appreciated how Zena brought that up before. Go ahead, Leslie.
Awesome. Leslie, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I know, Stephanie, you mentioned, you know, like, what if they're just sort of feeling sad? I would say, like, you know, I tell this to students all the time that, you know, our emotions, like, you know, are a roller coaster pretty much. They change daily, hourly almost. It's okay, like Sarah had said, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel sad sometimes. I think when students or people are experiencing that sadness and moving towards depression is when you would need to seek additional help. But, you know, every day, like, there's some days when I'm sad and some days when I'm really happy and some days when I'm stressed. It's how we use that energy and how we kind of turn that to a more positive way. So, for example, like doing things that you enjoy to try to get yourself out of those little funks.
Thank you so much. Any last comments from the panel before I look to Wendy and Felicia? I think I saw a question or two in that chat. I could be wrong, but is there any questions that are coming from the audience?
We have a couple, but one says, how would you know what kind of help is needed? What level?
Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I can give a comment on that. I think, you know, I think it's an assessment that if you're not comfortable making, so if, say, a student comes to their teacher and the teacher's not necessarily comfortable like making an assessment of like what kind of help does this student need, I would say, you know, for teachers, you know, reach out to your academic counselors. If there's a mental health professional or BHS on your campus, reach out to that BHS and kind of consult. You're always welcome to consult if you're not sure, and how you would assess that. And typically, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, if you're able to share, I'm just not feeling great, I'm just feeling sad, like, that's a level of, okay, like, let's talk about that, let's work with that. But if it's a level of like, they're kind of maybe indicating that there's some potential self-harm, that's where I think it bumps it up to another level, kind of like what Zena was saying of like, we might need to get you some more help, right? But I would say, you know, if you're not, you know, astute to doing an assessment of that, like, kind of level, I would really encourage you to reach out to the staff on your campus who are, and parents as well, if you're concerned about your student and not really sure if they might need more support or what that looks like. You're welcome to also reach out to your school mental health professional or your own doctor or academic, you know, advisors, and see, you know, if they would be willing to kind of check in and help out and see kind of what might be going on and what they would recommend.
Thank you, Sarah. Just for those of you that are listening, if you're not sure who and where to find the person to contact, under the parent portal on the district website, there is a link to counseling resources for elementary and secondary. And on there is links to resources, but also it's a directory of counselors. and who's the person that's assigned to your particular school. Now, if you have a stronger relationship with a particular teacher or a school psychologist, then go to that person. But if you don't know where to start, definitely you can talk to your teacher, you can talk to the school counselor that's assigned to your school. And at the end of this series tonight, there will be a slide that has additional resources that you can access as well. But just so that you know, we are a phone call or a text away. So if you do not know, go find my name on the district website and call me, or call Felicia, or call the superintendent. We will get you what you need. There is a wealth of resources in our district, and we don't want anyone to feel like they're alone and they don't have anyone that can help them, because I promise you, we will get some resource to you, even if it's just our ears listening. Okay, any other comments or questions about this third question? And then Wendy, I thought was there one more thing?
I just want to point out, we did put in the chat, there are several phone numbers for the Contra Costa Crisis Center where you can call for help. You can call on your own behalf, or you can call on behalf of another person if you're concerned about them and you need immediate help 24/7. There is also a text number, and I think that one is particularly important, because I think a lot of kids, it's hard to pick up the phone, right? That's just not their first mode of communication. Right. So that text number is really important, and that is, if you text HOPE to 20121, there will be somebody there who can help you at any given time. And again, you have that number available for you. And also, if you're concerned about somebody else and you feel like, oh my goodness, I don't want to tell my mom, I just need a little bit of help on this thing right here. And then that's going to be really important. And then let those people decide if, there needs to be some further intervention. My advice to everybody is, if you don't know, call anyway and ask. It's better to be safe than sorry. And the other thing I think that is really important is our panelists are discussing amongst themselves, which I think is really great to see. And some of the things that they're sharing are just really the basic things that we can all remind each other, which is just let other people know that you're there for them. Let other people know that you're there to help and they're not alone. And I think that'll go a long way, and that's being shared behind the scenes. So I wanted to pass that out to our people too.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so we're going to move to the fourth question, and this question is for Leslie, Alondra, Pedro, and Sarah, and other panelists. You always can hop in at the end. What can my child do to help their siblings? And if you're answering this as a recommendation for students, what could you do as a student to help your siblings? Leslie, do you want to start with that?
Yeah. So I would suggest that, like siblings check in with each other once in a while, taking time to talk to your younger siblings, or taking time to talk to your older siblings, just to see how they're doing, maybe even doing like fun games, like heads up, or doing things to enjoy each other's company. And then, yeah, that's all I have. Alondra?
I wanted to start off by saying that I recently have started really being more open with my sister about mental health, because she's older than me and she's married. So I rarely see her, but I do know it can be hard for some students to talk to their siblings, since this is a serious talk. But for others, it might be easy. Everyone's different, but I personally just asked her if she was okay, and then that opened up like more conversations. And because I started noticing that she was different, she wasn't being her usual self. She answered my question, and after that, I already said that, sorry. And she started getting more comfortable and being more open with me. That's what I think will help. Honestly, just sitting down with your sibling or siblings and asking them if they're okay, because at the end of the day, they're your siblings, and you need to remind them that mental health is important.
Thank you. Pedro, would you like to add anything? Thank you, Alondra.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that in some homes, we have a lot of siblings that are doing this stuff already. We have a lot of some older students that are getting their younger siblings ready for school. They're making sure that they have their their laptops ready, that that the laptops are charged, that they have the materials. That I've heard some situations where actually we have some students that are helping their younger siblings build like a routine, like a schedule. This is where you need to be at this particular time. And then also like helping the younger siblings build in some breaks. So I think like we have a lot of our students, especially those students who have parents who don't have the luxury to be home. We have a lot of kids that are doing some of these things. So again, building in some routines, some structures, like schedules, breaks, making sure students have like, their laptops ready. So they're kind of ready to learn, and so I would suggest those simple things can really help to create like a level of routine and a level of predictability in terms of what happens in the schedule of young people. And so like I want to recognize, it's a shout out to those young, like young adults that for better or for worse have been put in these situations where they're not only having to take care of their own education, but they're also providing a sense of structure for their younger siblings. So my hat's off to those students that are pulling double duty right now. So
thank you, Pedro. Sarah, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's the students helping the siblings helping their siblings is definitely something I have seen so much of this year, and it's really been great to hear and to see. And one of the things that, like I said before, is we I think modeling is really important, and it's okay to not be okay. And I think validating, if you have a younger sibling, and this is to the students, you have a younger sibling who's just really struggling, it's okay to validate that like things are hard right now, and to say like, yeah, it's hard for me too, and to just be there and to be present and to listen. That's sometimes just being there is all you need to do, right? I think that it can definitely be there can definitely be built-in activities. I think a lot of the isolation that we've had from peers and things like that, it's definitely really been difficult on many of our students and us. And one example I can say is like, playing games with each other, right? Activities is important, but even simple things like, hey, let's eat lunch together. Let's sit at the table and have lunch together, right? Like normally when we're in person, we'd sit at the lunch table with our friends and our peers and we talk, right? So it's a normal thing that we still are doing, but you're doing it together and you're still connecting. So oh, we have some downtime. Let's go for a walk around the block together, right? It's part of a routine that can be established, like Pedro said, right? It's some consistency, but it's also just really acknowledging, I'm going through this with you. I'm right here. I'm doing the same thing you are. So let's just, we can, and really assuring like there is a light at the end of this tunnel. We will get through this together, and kind of going through that with them, and really just like I said before, like validating, be present. That I think is the key to supporting siblings.
Thank you. For the rest of the panels, is there any additional thoughts that popped up in your mind while we were listening to our colleagues and panelists for this?
I don't have any siblings, but like my friend, I've noticed like my friend, she has a younger sister, and she's been helping her a lot, like with getting ready for school and making sure technology is working and making sure that her computer is working, and make sure, like, say if her computer isn't working, she'll help her fix it, or say she'll go into her Chromebook and give her computer. Like I've seen, and like they've been doing a lot of activities, and then like we've been taking walks together and that kind of thing. So I've seen my friend help her sibling, her younger sister, a lot.
Thank you, Michaela. Any other? Will, are you? I thought I saw you undo.
Yes. I would like to make a point, actually. I really liked what the panel said. I especially liked what Alondra and Michaela said. I like the way they framed it, because in talking about that in siblings and the importance of siblings, some people have siblings, some don't, but siblings have a perspective of the world that's unlike anyone else. And that's the one thing that's really shared. So that shared experience can really be something strong and powerful. And I like the way Alondra talked about that, of reaching out kind of across ages to do that. I think the importance important thing as a parent that I like to pinpoint here is, you know, here on this panel, we're a very verbal group and we're very articulate about mental health and mental health support. And not all our kids are express or do things in that way. And I think Sarah kind of touched on this too. Support and help doesn't have to be, let's talk out your problems. It can be, you know, let's go out and shoot hoops together. Let's play video games together. Let's be there together and make those routines and being present and together, because verbal support is really efficient and very pinpointed, but sometimes what we really need is someone to be there with us and someone to walk, just walk there and know that every day that person's going to be there for you. So for siblings, I encourage that, but as parents, modeling that and discussing that, I think is a great thing. So going to the older brothers or the older sisters, saying like, hey, you know what, you can reach your brother or sister like no one else can. And these are some of the recommendations. Be there with them and support them. I think the other thing is older siblings are used to fixing everything. And I think just saying like, don't try to fix it. If they're really having a problem, it's so hard to fix, or try to fix one thing, or just listen, or just be present. And it's, I think what Sarah said before was beautiful. It's okay to not be okay. Modeling that and really supporting it, I think is a really good piece. So thank you for the panel.
Great additions. I think the other piece that popped into my mind is letting your siblings know that you might be feeling the same way. Sometimes I think people try to hide that you're not okay, or you might be nervous, or I'm overwhelmed. And when a sibling, even if it's a sibling that's not overly close, but it's like they trust you, you're their family, and knowing, gosh, I didn't know you were feeling the same way. Gosh, what are you doing? And just brainstorming how you might be able to address that. I think normalizing that everybody's feeling stressed. And I think Sarah had made a comment about, you know, if you're helping your siblings and you're coordinating all these things and you're trying to hold your own as a student, make sure that you're advocating, you're telling your siblings, have you told your teacher how you're feeling? Have you shared that you're having to share the Wi-Fi because it keeps going out? Are you telling what's happening behind the scenes? Because sometimes your teacher or your counselor doesn't know. And if we don't know, then we can't help adjust and make some supports and modifications for you. So don't be embarrassed. If the Wi-Fi went out or mom's not home, let your teacher or your counselor know, because they can help you try to adjust and make that more supportive for you. And pretty soon we will get back in person. And that's going to be a whole other transition as well. I think was there any other comments or questions in the chat? I thought I saw Wendy nod. So you want to pose that, Wendy?
There's a bunch of different things happening, and the one commentator said that we really need to make sure that the teachers know. So you touched on that. So if you are having a problem at home with, you know, the Wi-Fi going out, there's 6 of us trying to do our work in one room. You know, I'm really not doing well. Please let the teachers know, and that's a good thing. And on that same note, I just wanted to thank our panelists personally on that, because I think a lot of us find it really difficult to ask for help. And you guys are not only doing that in the privacy of your homes, you're doing that publicly, and that takes a huge amount of courage. So thank you for that. Truly, I am so very grateful. And another thing that I wanted to also mention is that, you know, it's great to be a support for your siblings, but it's also okay to say, you know what, I have never spent this much time with you in my whole life, and frankly, I don't want to. Yep. And I just need a break from you. And yep. So let's be real, right? Not all of us have love affairs with our siblings, and it's okay to say, I just need a little time right now. Leave me alone. And I don't want to, you know, push this whole single narrative that we have to be there for our siblings, because sometimes for our own self, we have to step away, and that's okay too. It's probably helpful to both of you.
Yeah, great.
And I raise children. I raise children of my own. And also Mrs. Turner wrote in with a very specific question that we want to address. What she said is, how do we help young people who are dealing with specific things like OCD during the pandemic? You know, such things like mindful activities. But if anybody else has any other suggestions, how do we help our kids or ourselves who have known issues that may or may not be exacerbated during this time at home?
Does anyone want to open up for that comment? And if not, we can go to our fifth one and then try to circle back around, because I think we might have a little bit of time to come back to that.
I can't speak on like the OCD portion of it, but if you are like dealing with anxiety or like depression, keeping yourself busy with things really does help. Like what I like to do is I like to go into Michael's and I have like a budget for myself, and every week or month I start a new project. Like last week I was crocheting, this week I'm making clay sculptures. So it like changing things up really helps, and it gets your mind off of the negative and more into the positive. So that helps a lot.
Great point. Thank you.
I don't mind commenting on the question about the OCD behaviors. I think so OCD is a very specific sort of diagnosis, and typically when someone has that diagnosis and they seek support for it, it's a very specific sort of niche of kind of intervention. And I would suggest that if someone is struggling with that, and it's definitely that's what it is, make sure to link them with a clinician or their clinician, because I think that, there are definitely resources out there, and, I have some, but not offhand right now. Depending on what that sort of behavior is, that can really potentially really support their needs. And so I would say, if there's a specific kind of specific issue around that, link them with their clinician and their therapist, that in theory that they would be working with, and have them, maybe connect with their teacher if you can get that release of information to support maybe how they're learning in virtual distance learning model. Because I can imagine that there may be some things that come up and some supports that maybe teachers might need around that. And so I would say, if there's any way that you can try to find a connection to their clinician and get a message to them or through their parents to try and find some of that support, I would really encourage teachers to do that.
Thank you. And I believe I saw Wendy put the link to the school counseling website. So on the district website, under the student services page, as well as on the parent portal, there is a link to a very, very comprehensive counseling website that we have built and expand this year. So there are great resources that schools can connect families and students to for clinical diagnosis, such as OCD and others. But one thing is just to make sure that your school personnel know what you're going through, so that they have a better understanding of how to support you. If you are feeling that way and you're working with a therapist and you've been diagnosed, but the school doesn't know that you're going through that we're missing a piece to the puzzle. And so making sure that you're identifying and sharing that information with your school counselor or a trusting staff member at your school, that could be very helpful. So I'm looking at the time, and we have one more question. So I'd like to get that before we can kind of close this up. And the last question, and it's open specifically to Sarah, Leslie, and Will, but for the rest of the panel, please feel free to chime in after, is what are some ways that a student can help destigmatize and support the mental health of their peers and school community? So once again, what are some ways that a student can help destigmatize and support the mental health of their peers and school community? Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I kind of actually want to go back to something that Zena had said in one of the past questions of what she does, right? She reaches out. And I think ultimately, just practicing kindness, right? Keeping an open mind with all of your peers. You never know like what someone is truly dealing with and who is, truly struggling. And so, I think, being kind above all is, the first line of defense there, right? In destigmatizing anything, any mental health issues that come along, being willing to speak openly about it, I think is really important. I really commend our three students who are on this panel tonight and speaking about this. This is huge, and I think this is, I'm so appreciative that we have our students here, because this is definitely something that I needs to happen continually, right? And so I think that's important. If someone says something that's stigmatizing, right? If a peer says something and you're kind of like, ooh, say something, right? Like, hey, that's, I'm not cool with that. That, saying, what you said actually is kind of demeaning, and that's not okay. So calling things out is really important. And then I think, if you really want to take it to the next level and you're really that motivated, connect with, a teacher or someone who's willing to be a moderator and try to like organize like during like mental health awareness week or something, on your campus. We've done that on our campus before, and we've had a really great turnout. And if that's something that our students are interested in really in doing, connect with your school counselors and see if they're willing to help organize something like that with you. That's kind of the first big thing that you could do on your campus to support that.
Great. Well, that's a perfect segue into Miss Leslie. If you want to add to that.
Yeah. I think that I would say students nowadays use social media a lot. And you can use social media either for the positive or the negative. I would suggest that students use it for the positive, and make sure that they're like reposting helpful information, like positive quotes, reposting any like crisis lines that other students can go to. Because like I said, social media is all over the place, and I know that everybody is using it. So you might as well use it and put it to good use. And then I would also suggest that, you talk about your mental health with your family. It starts with our family first, and letting them know, if you're not feeling okay or if things are too stressful for you, to reach out to any family members that you trust, whether that be a cousin, your parents, your uncle or your aunt, just so that, you still have that conversation between your families.
Thank you. And then Will, you were our closer, but the rest of the panelists, of course, feel free to chime in after Will.
Sure. So, and if I'm remembering right, this was a question that came from the panel last time that we met. It was something that came up that we thought was important to address. So I'm glad that we are. And to mirror what the other panelists were saying, I think the number one thing with destigmatizing mental health support in schools, what students can do is, first of all, is to really speak up. And it's really important that students do that. I'm really glad that we have students on this panel, because as an adult, I can talk all day about the importance of mental health, but it really sounds different when it's coming from Zena or Alondra or from Michaela. It's obvious, but student culture is made by students, and that's the culture that we're trying to change and destigmatize. So I can't change it ultimately. Ultimately, it's going to come within that culture, and that's important. The words that you have are actually really important, and they really create change, and that can be on social media or that can be individually. So as you're saying those words, as you're being mindful of your words and using words that are inclusive, they're really important. It's also important to know that this change takes time. We talk in counseling about planting seeds. So it's not going to be something that you're going to, talk about help that you've gotten or how important it is to support everybody. That's not going to change instantly, but that can change things slowly. Conversations about mental health are really important, and talking about it and being open if you can. I guess the other thing that I really see important in this question is seeing examples from the culture. And it's one thing for us to stand up here as adults. As Pedro is, I'm close to 50. I have a very different perspective than teenagers do. But I'm optimistic in the culture that there are, for example, the NBA recently has been really great about talking about mental health. The NBA was in the bubble and they were isolated for that time for months. And after that came out, a lot of players, Paul George, big players came out and said, I was depressed and I was anxious and I did not play to my top performance because of these things were coming forward. Now that's going to sound very different from an NBA star than it's going to come from one of us. The other piece I like to think about this is coaches as models. I often think that coaches are some of our best therapists, and they're really the ones that can do a lot of change because they have a different perspective and a different view for our students. So as our coaches and mental health support comes from a lot of places and a lot of different spots. So as cultures, if we're thinking about this, I think it's an important piece. And I don't know if any of the students have something they also want to add on this one. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Zena?
Yeah, I actually really want to address the fact that, I mean, I realize this like in middle school, people really like, they don't really understand mental health issues and they make fun of it because they don't understand it. Which, I mean, I can kind of see, like, if you don't understand something, obviously you're gonna like kind of manipulate it to like make it something you can target. But I think if we just, as like a group, start to like penalize people that make fun of people that have like mental issues and need help, it'll like make more people kind of come out and ask, like, hey, I need help, where can I get this help? Like in my personal experiences, every time I see someone use like some like slurs that are like targeted towards people with like mental handicaps or like disabilities, I like always call them out and I'm like, hey, this isn't cool. Like, people are hurt by this and you're only making it worse and harder for people to normalize the fact that this happens to a lot of people. Like, I don't think people understand that the majority of people that you're with have something that they might be hiding, they may not be open about it, but they're going through stuff. So yeah, that really helps not to like destigmatize it.
Great point. Any other panelists want to add any thoughts? Okay, Wendy and what? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
I did put it in the chat, but I do really encourage any students who are interested in destigmatizing mental health, in the community to reach out to your counselors and help support them in whatever work they're doing. A lot of your counselors are, running peer educator groups like the tobacco use prevention education, or you can help do some research on how to promote better mental health in the community. There's several different ways where you can be active in your community. And, we all want to hear from all the students and that are affected by, COVID and just dealing with all the mental health issues that they go through.
And Leslie, I think that's a great point. I think oftentimes us adults we make decisions based on what we think is right for kids, but we forget to have conversations with you guys. We forget to ask the students' perspective. And I think this panel, the peer educators, the student leadership groups, those are ways that we're trying to be more intentional about hearing from all voices, not just some voices. So if you aren't normally involved in sharing how you're thinking at your school, find a group, talk to your school counselor, because we're coming up with a lot of different ways. And I know our school board and our superintendent really is valuing and wanting, and I know our community is wanting to hear what you need and what we can do to support you. And we won't know unless you have some conversations with us. So I really am encouraging you to find somebody on your school campus that you can start sharing your perspectives, because I swear the majority of the great ideas that are coming from a student at a school. It's not from one of us. And I'm like Pedro. I'm in the 50s, so I've been around for a while. But I swear sometimes that I get the best ideas from just having a conversation with the student. And your perspective is important. And we really do want to hear it. And I think our district is really going to be making a concerted effort moving forward and ongoing to get you at the table to have some conversations about how we support and educate you. So please, find somebody, and I'm just going to echo what Leslie shared, because I do think it's really important and it's something that's close to my heart. So once again, I'm going to request, if you are a student watching this, if you want to sit on a future panel, please contact your school counselor or contact myself. And I know that Felicia and Wendy can put our contact information in the chat. We would love to have more students represented on the remaining 5 panels. And our leaders, Zena, Michaela, and Alondra, can speak to that it wasn't that horrible. We prep you and we kind of make sure you can know what to expect so that you're not quite as nervous. But so any questions or last minute thoughts from the group, or questions that have came up in the chat? And I see contact information is being put into the chat. there any other questions that came up in the chat that we want to take advantage of the panel's perspective and expertise before we kind of I can give you the next steps of what's happening in the future ones. Yes, I see that. The students did an amazing job. So thank you again. And Will, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to quickly thank all the participants for showing up and being here. This, it's Tuesday evening and we all have lots to do. And I just appreciate how many people came out and said that the mental health of our students is a priority to them. So I appreciate their participation in it.
Perfect. Anyone else? Okay, so I want to remind those of you that are watching, this video is recorded, so it will be on the district website. So if you come across a person or a student and you think this would really benefit, all you have to do is go to the district website, copy the link and send it to them. It will be there. It's under student services, under mental health, and under the parent portal. And when we were planning this morning with the students, we realized, oh, we probably should put it on the student section too, since this is for students. So that was one of the good suggestions that they came up with. So once again, good ideas come from the students. So we want to remind you, there will be a slide at the end of this recording of some resources. But once again, the next panel will be on March 30th. It will be at the same time from 5 to 6:15. And that one is, the topic is recognizing when to get help beyond the home. April 20th is specific to anxiety and depression. And we know there's lots of questions that have been coming up. So please, on the website, you can also see a link to a survey that you can put the questions that you would like us to answer. So we really are encouraging people to send us your questions so that we can make sure that we're responding to questions that are pertinent and relevant to the audience. And then on May 11th, we're going to have a panel regarding parents of teens and tweens and how to facilitate independence when they can't leave the house. Hopefully we can leave the house a little bit more in the future, but we're still not able to leave the house all that much. And then in the beginning of June 6th, we're going to have a focus on parents of elementary age. So what skills can we increase during distance learning? And then in June, the last part of June 22nd, we're going to identify finding community supports and summer activities for all levels and all ages. So here's our topics. And then our last slide is a variety of resources. The third item down where it says a self-care kit is a great resource that was shared by one of our panelists. So feel free to click on that. And we'll also put this link as a PDF document under the mental health panel or the mental health webinar under student services. And I'm looking at the time and we've got about 3 more minutes. Any last comments or questions from the panel or chat questions? Because I will just kind of thank everybody at the end.
I just wanted to share that there were a couple of questions came in that were specific that I don't think we have time to answer today, but we can certainly incorporate them into our next session. And one of the questions that came in is how specifically do we help our Black students when they're having concerns connecting to people who may not represent them? Their culture and lifestyle and not understand it, and how do we support them in ways that are meaningful? So I think we can address that in our next panel, that just to make sure that we're not ignoring that question.
Right. Well, and I think that's a great point, Wendy. A few of the questions that we responded to tonight came from the January session. So we do take notes of this. We save the chat, and all of the panelists and those of us at the district office review the chat and kind of make note of what questions we should add in future panels. So even though we may not have been able to get to a particular specific question tonight, please know we are taking note of that and we appreciate your questions because these webinars are for you and we are building them as we go. And so we know by June, these are going to be great. They're going to be running smoothly, but we really appreciate the panelists for taking the time and bringing their knowledge and expertise to tonight. And we thank those of you that joined us live tonight and those of us that will join us later on recording. We really appreciate everyone. And we we look forward to working collaboratively to get our students back into the classroom and seeing your amazing faces and continuing to support you learning academically and growing, as an individual. So we're really grateful and we look forward to seeing you in March.
Keep the questions coming.